couple weeks ago, I posted a Q&A box on my Instagram stories. I didn't get to get through all of them, so I told you guys that I would be filming a YouTube Q&A. Today, I'm going to be answering all of your guys' questions. Thank you so much to everyone who sent in questions. If you're not following me already over on my Instagram, it's at @aissata_amadou. My DMs are always open. I always get questions from you guys about college, transferring, if you guys need advice. It does take me a minute sometimes to actually get through everything, but I try to eventually get to as many of my DMs as possible. This past weekend was my birthday. It was my 23rd birthday and I turned 23. I'm gonna be recording a podcast episode on disclaimers aside, so stay tuned for that. But I had a really fun weekend. My friends took me out to dinner on Friday and then my actual birthday was on Sunday. Sunday I ran some errands with my sister. We went to IKEA. Super random, but they happened to just be having a sale, and then my parents took me out to dinner Sunday night. Very chill, very fun. Turning 23 is so interesting. It's like I'm starting to feel more adult. Like 20, 21, 22, it's still the early 20s. I mean, 23 I feel like is pretty early in your 20s. I feel like 23 is such like an elegant and mature age. I'm really excited for this next year. I always look forward to getting older and the wisdom that comes with each year, and I'm just hoping as I near 25, when my prefrontal cortex is like fully developed and everything, that I can just become more mature, that I can kind of let go of a lot of my teenage insecurities, stop caring what people think, all of those things. I really want 23 to be a year of self-development and growth. It just happens to be the year that I'm also taking time off in between school, so it's gonna be a transitional phase of my life. So I'm really excited for this year, inshallah, and alhamdulillah, just grateful to be blessed with another year. A lot of questions about the elsat. How is studying for the elsat? How are elsats? What's the update on the elsat? This is my 4th month studying for the elsat, and I think originally in my life update video that I filmed right after I graduated, I mentioned that I was aiming to take the elsat sometime in like August, September. Plans have changed, and I think the more that I have studied, the more that I've learned more about the process. It actually can take quite a bit of time to study for the elsat. It's not a cookie cut journey. Some people can get it done in like a few months. Some people need closer to a year and up to even over a year. And so originally my plan was to study for the elsats, take them in August and September, and try and apply this cycle. But I've actually decided to not apply this cycle. And it was a really difficult decision to come to, just because I really wanted to be able to apply this cycle, and I basically have everything that I need to submit my applications except for my elsats. I mean, my personal statements and like the essays I definitely need to work on. Those are not done, but the main missing piece that I needed was my elsat score. But I think throughout this whole journey, I've learned that you can't really put a timeline or have too much of a plan when it comes to the elsat. You need to take as long as it needs to take to get to the score that you're gonna get. And a lot of the advice that I've heard with this test is to study for it, and once you have your elsat score, then figure out when is the right time to apply. You shouldn't really be trying to set like a timeline for applications and then trying to cram your elsat score to make it to a certain cycle, because it'll put a lot of pressure on yourself when it comes to studying, and you just won't give yourself like the best shot. And so I was experiencing a lot of stress when it came to my studying, because every week that would go by, I would see the time running out, and it was just adding a lot of extra pressure. I just kind of decided to not force it, which I think was a really difficult and mature decision for me to make, because a few years ago, I would have just tried to take this test, settle with whatever score that I had, and then force my applications and like try and settle. But I think the older that I get, the more that I realize that like timelines don't really matter. Law school's always going to be there. It's not going to make a difference if I start law school when I'm 24 versus when I'm 25. Age doesn't matter. All of these things don't really matter, except doing things right and giving yourself the best chance. And so I really had to take a step back and really learn from my past experiences with undergrad, and just seeing how like settling was not the best decision for me in the past. So I came to the conclusion that I need to take an extra year. And so I'm not going to be taking the LSAT anytime soon. I'm just going to continue studying over the course of the next few months. I'm in my 4th month of studying, and I really need to make a lot of improvement in reading comp. I've made a lot of progress in logical reasoning, but I'm struggling a lot with reading comp, and it's difficult to make progress with reading comp. It's possible, but it just takes a long time to see progress on it. So that's kind of where I'm at. This does mean that I'm going to be taking 2 gap years before law school instead of 1. And for a while that really bothered me because I really only wanted to take 1 gap year. But I'm trying to see the silver lining in things. I believe that things happen and are written in a certain way, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the best and most perfect plan for us. And so I know that there is a reason why I need to take this extra year. Nonetheless, I'm going to continue taking you guys through my LSAT journey, studying for the LSAT, and when the day comes that I am finally done with this test, I will share with you guys all of my entire journey, what worked for me, what didn't, and give you guys my advice. But in the meantime, if you have any tips, let me know. How does it feel being a graduate? I've gotten this question so many times from so many different people. A lot of the times my answer is like, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like I graduated. I think because I graduated and immediately, I think I took a week break and then immediately started studying for the LSAT. And because I'm not really working a traditional job, it doesn't really feel like I'm like done with school and I'm in my like post-grad era, even though I'm technically in my post-grad era. So it definitely feels weird. This week is actually the week I would have been going back to school if I had still been in school, and it's so weird to see everyone go back to school and like not be going back to school. Even though I was really sad to graduate and I definitely knew I was gonna miss Berkeley, I was gonna miss my college experience, I feel ready. Like I feel like I am ready to go to law school. I'm ready to move on to the next chapter. While I definitely miss academia and I'm an academic at heart, like I could literally be in school for years and years and years if it wasn't so expensive. I am also happy to be graduated and happy to have finished undergrad and to be moving on to like the next phase of my life. I definitely miss being a student and being in class and learning in that way, because studying the LSAT is so draining, and it's a type of learning, but like it's a very draining type of learning. Graduating also means that you get a lot of questions from people like, what are you doing? What are you up to? And I think the pressures of graduating can be kind of hard to deal with. Like I know myself, like sometimes I really struggle with the fact that I'm literally studying full-time for the LSAT. I don't have a job, and that was kind of my own personal decision because I know my track record with standardized testing, and I know that if I study full-time that I will give myself the best shot at actually doing well on this test. And working and studying will definitely take longer and also just like take away my attention from the actual test, which is the most important thing right now when it comes to my application. I have a lot of work experience under my belt. I've done a couple internships here and there. I am looking forward to the phase where I'm like finally working again, but I need to take this time to study for this test. It's really hard when you see like everyone your age starting their new jobs, moving to their new cities, the people that have gone straight into grad school and all of that, and like it's definitely hard to not compare yourself to other people. But I think for me, every time I kind of spiral, I remind myself of the end goal. I remind myself of like what I am working towards, and remind myself that every single day that I am working towards this end goal and this thing that I've been working towards like my entire life. Okay, so these next questions are going to be a series of questions about Mishwara. I received a lot of questions about Mishwara, which honestly makes sense. I feel like I haven't really talked too much about it, especially here on YouTube. Like I've been posting about it on Instagram and TikTok, but I just haven't had the chance to like actually sit down and talk to you guys about it. I've also been on a break from podcasting, so I haven't had the chance to sit down and record with my sisters. But my sisters and I are starting a hijab brand called Mishwara. It's a Mauritanian hijab brand inspired by Mauritanian culture and Mauritanian fashion, and Mishwara is Hassania for headscarf. It just means headscarf or hijab. So my sisters and I have been working on this since January. January is like when we initially first had the idea to start this, and it's been in the works behind the scenes since January. So it's definitely been a long process, and we're planning on recording a podcast episode talking about the entire process, so I'll be sharing that over on Disclaimers Aside. But essentially, just to give you guys like a little short rundown, we decided that we wanted to start a hijab business because we were really inspired by the metapas, which the metapas is a veil that's worn in Mauritania and that my mom wears even though we live in the US and has always worn our entire lives. It's a huge part of Mauritanian culture and fashion. The metapas is just so beautiful in the way that it's worn, in the way that it is just so elegant and modest, and it also just features such vivid colors and patterns. Like, I think for me, a lot of how my hijab journey has evolved, a lot of how my hijab style has changed has really been inspired by the metapas. So the metapas has been really important for me and my modest journey. It's been important in my sister's modesty journeys and their journeys with hijab, and it's also just an important part of Mauritanian culture and a connection to my roots. So we really wanted to start a hijab brand just inspired by that and also inspired by Mauritanian culture as a whole. When we went about this entire process, we really wanted to have as much of the process be based in Mauritania because we didn't want to just start like a hijab brand and start wearing hijabs. We wanted, you know, every part of the process to have a positive impact on Mauritania, and supporting the Mauritanian economy is so important to us. So everything from the dyeing, the cutting, and the sewing is done in Mauritania. The actual materials for the hijabs are bought in Mauritania. So my sister went to Mauritania this summer. She was volunteering at a dental clinic, and it was the perfect opportunity for her to just oversee the entire process and go out and like buy the material. All of the hijabs dyed at my grandma's like dyeing lady, so it was just all very much like a process that was like rooted in our home and in our culture. That was really important because even though we are selling these in the US, we really wanted things to be authentic to Mauritania and Mauritanian culture. Even the designs for the hijabs, like the dyeing, was taken off of designs that we've seen on the streets of Mauritania. There have definitely been a lot of challenges. I'm not saying that this whole launch has been very perfect. There have definitely been a lot of hiccups and things that we've just been learning along the way, but we knew that there would be a lot of challenges with the startup and we'd learn a lot with this first drop. So initially we decided to already start off with a smaller drop, but then there were a lot of issues with production, and so we're calling this a soft launch because we don't have a ton of stock, but we are going to be launching our website on September 9th. Go follow Mishwara's Instagram. We also have a TikTok to stay tuned for all of that. We're going to be keeping you guys posted on everything over on there, including when the website launches and all of that. I'm so excited for it to launch, and all of the scarves just have such an important meaning and a connection to a different aspect of Mauritanian culture. So I'm really excited to just be able to bring Mauritanian culture to a wider market and just to also give Mauritania a name and to help gain better representation for Mauritania, because Mauritania has long been a country that is just never known. Like when I tell people I'm Mauritanian, they're like, what is that? Enough is enough. It's just been a really fun project for my sisters and I to work on, and I've been more focused on the creative aspect of things. Rakia has been more of like the math, the finances, the logistics. Hadim has been more on research and like the production process and the packaging and everything. So I feel like we all kind of bring our different strengths to this project, and I'm just really excited. So stay tuned. We're planning on donating 10% of the proceeds, but we'll have more details and all of that on the website once it's live. So definitely in the meantime, follow Mishwara on the social media platforms and stay tuned for that website. Having said that, the first question is, when will the Mishwara website be up? It's going to be on September 9th, 9/9. Stay tuned. Are the scarves affordable? So all of the scarves are $20 each. We wanted to just have like a flat rate for all of the hijabs. Will you start selling metapas? Right now we're just focusing mainly on hijabs, but down the line we'd love to like look into doing things like selling the metapa, because it is just so beautiful. How is working on Mishwara and studying for your elsat been lately? It's definitely been a lot. I'm studying for my elsat full-time, going to live classes, all of that, YouTube, podcasting, TikTok, just honestly keeping up with all of the different social media platforms and doing all this work behind the scenes for Mishwara, and just other things that I have in my life going on right now has just been like a lot of different things. Like it's not like I have like you know, work and school, or like studying elsat and work. It's like a lot. I feel like sometimes that I can be spread thin, and so it's definitely been challenging for me to be able to like balance everything, especially since my life is very unstructured right now. It's definitely been a challenge, but number one priority has definitely been elsat. And I think, you know, depending on the week, like I'll focus more on like getting mishwara stuff done, or I'll focus on podcasting, or I'll focus on YouTube. But like right now, these past couple weeks have been really heavily focused on mishwara because the launch is coming up. But once that launch is over, you know, I've been taking a break from podcasting, and that's something that I definitely want to make more time for. How many prints are launching? We're launching 8 prints as of right now. Will your scarves be worldwide shipping? Right now, we're only going to be shipping to the US and Canada, but we really do want to expand for future drops. Again, this first drop is going to be smaller, so that's why we're calling it a soft launch. But inshallah, in the future, when we have more stock and once we figure out the logistics of international shipping, that's something we definitely want to do. Do you speak Fulani? I don't. I can completely understand it, but I'm really not the best at speaking it back. What are you currently reading? So I'm currently reading How Does It Feel to Be a Problem by Mustafa Bayumi. I picked this up in Seattle. I went to this bookstore called Left Bank Books. It's in the Pike Place Market area. I definitely recommend going there and checking them out. It was just a cute little bookstore, but it's the stories of 7 young Arab and Muslim Americans who are forging lives for themselves in a country that often mistakes them for the enemy. It's inspired by Du Bois's question, how does it feel to be a problem? He was talking about the Black American experience, and this is mainly focusing on the Arab and Muslim experience. So I'm only a chapter in, and so far I'm really enjoying it. Also, the cover is just stunning. What's your favorite podcast right now aside from your own? Let me check the podcast app and see what I've been listening to. The thing about me is like I will listen to the same podcast over and over and over again, but my favorite, I want to say recently, has been On Purpose with Jay Shetty. I just feel like Jay Shetty has such interesting conversations and also just interesting guests on his podcast. And even though he definitely teeters into like the self-development genre, which I don't typically love because I feel like it can get very preachy, his episodes don't really feel very preachy, and I feel like I learn a lot from listening to his podcast. East Coast or West Coast for law school? Definitely, if I had to pick, it would be the East Coast because I just want something different. I think for grad school, I really wanted to go to the East Coast when I was applying to undergrad, and I just ended up staying in California because it was a lot more affordable and it just made the most sense. So I think for law school, I would love to experience a change. And I do kind of envision myself coming back to California after, or just like later down the line. So I'd love to experience something different in between because I've lived in California at this point for more than half of my life. It's been a long time that I've been living in California. And I feel like I've also experienced like Southern California and Northern California too. So I'd like to experience something different. What are your opinions on borrowing money for school, especially as a Muslim, especially for law? The thing about law school is it is so expensive. Education in America is expensive in general. Undergrad is so expensive, but like law school is just insanely expensive. It's like around the same level as like dental school and med school. Depending on the law school, it can get really expensive. Like Columbia is the most expensive law school and you're almost hitting 100K a year. So it's just not realistic, I think, sometimes to pay for everything out of pocket. Like I know for myself, like I'm not going to be able to pay for law school out of pocket, and I'm definitely going to have to take on loans, which can be hard Islamically. You just kind of have to use your best judgment and like do the work that you can to get as much aid and financial aid and scholarships as possible. And then beyond that, I think if you know that you're taking on a level of debt that you'll be able to pay down the line, Islamically, because we live in a country where there aren't a lot of options when it comes to loans and like interest-free loans, I think personally for myself, I think it's fine. And with my decision when it comes to higher education, I know that I'm going to be taking all of those different factors into consideration. And that is part of the reason why a field like corporate law, at least for the beginning of my career, is really appealing, because of the financial security and knowing that like if I go into corporate law for the first few years of my legal career, that I'll be able to comfortably pay off my loans. So I think taking on student loans can be very scary, but I do think it is one of the forms of loans that are actually smart to take on, and it's like a form of debt that is very much necessary to be able to propel yourself. How's Hayati? I feel like I don't show Hayati in the vlogs as much as I should, but Hayati is now, I want to say 5 months old. Yeah, I think she's 5 months old. She's growing so quickly. Like, we got her when she was 2 months and she was so tiny, and now she's like at least doubled if not tripled in size. She is so cute, but like she is not the type of cat that likes to be pet. She will not let people pick her up. She runs away. She's scared of like everyone in my family except for my mom. She follows my mom around everywhere in the house, but like even me, like when I get close to her, like she will not let me pet her. She'll run away. She's very much like independent. She does her own thing. She like will just like walk around the house and play, and she is not super high maintenance. And I feel like a lot of cats are like that. I think some aren't, like some are more clingy. I heard also guy cats, like boy cats, are a lot more clingy, and girl cats are like more like they like to do their own thing. But she's very chill. She does her own thing. She is very scared of like anyone and everything, so she like runs away, but she's so cute. What are your thoughts on the It Ends With Us movie? I still have not seen it. I was gonna see it with a couple friends, but we have not seen it yet. We've just been really busy. As soon as the movie came out, it was just very controversial. A lot of like mixed feelings on the film. It's because of a lot of Blake Lively's interviews, which it's not looking good. It's really not looking good. I haven't seen the movie myself. It's hard to necessarily form an opinion, but I have read the book and I've gone through my whole Colleen Hoover era of life. I literally have a stack of books here. I don't read Colleen Hoover anymore. I have a whole video on that if you want to know why. I just don't really like the way that she romanticizes domestic abuse and abusive relationships, not just in this book, because this book is about domestic abuse, but she features a lot of relationships in her books that are very toxic and abusive, and doesn't really address the fact that they are abusive in her other books. I feel like her books can be problematic in that sense. I don't know how much I can really expect out of a film that's adapted by an author who has a history of romanticizing abusive relationships. I do plan on seeing it, so I will definitely keep you guys posted on my thoughts, but I'd love to hear what you guys thought of the movie. Any tips for someone who just started considering law school? I would say do a lot of research. Make sure it's something that you really, really want to do, because elsat's hard. It's expensive to apply to law schools. Law schools are expensive in and of itself. There's just a lot of challenges that come with it. It's not like the easiest thing to get yourself into. So I'd say start by doing a lot of research into law school, possibly talking to attorneys if that's something that you can do, like doing a lot of informational calls. I wanted to become a lawyer since I was 13, but I've had like a couple informational calls with like lawyers and just ask questions just to make sure that it really is something that I want to do, because getting a job at a legal clinic or a law firm is not the most accessible or easy thing that you can do. A lot of the times firms will only hire people that are already in law school, and by then it's already too late. But yeah, I'd say do a lot of research into the profession and like see if it's something that you could envision yourself going into. I don't think you necessarily have to know exactly what type of law you want to do, because from what I understand, a lot of people change their mind. Most people change their mind once they go to law school, and you don't really have like an accurate grasp of like what working in the law is going to actually be like until you go and you study the law. So I would say just making sure that like in general studying the law is something that you're interested in. And then I would say the most important thing and the thing to start earliest on, or the two most important things when it comes to your application, is getting as high a GPA as possible in undergrad. It doesn't matter what you're majoring in, just that you get the highest GPA that you possibly can, and that you get the highest LSAT that you possibly can, and start early. Because the two most important pieces of your application are your GPA and your LSAT. Talk to people in law school too. Like, don't just talk to attorneys, talk to people that are currently in law school, and just get a grasp of like what it's like, the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, the ugly. Do you have an idea about which type of lawyer you'd like to be? So I am really thinking about corporate law for the beginning of my career because of the financial security that it provides, and also just like the career opportunities. but I'm really interested in public interest law. I took a constitutional law class in undergrad and I loved that class. I also really loved my free speech class. So I really like constitutional cases, and that's just what I found very interesting. But I do want to go to law school with like an open mind, because again, I have not studied the law in depth, so I don't really know like all of the different types of law that are out there. But those are kind of the areas that I'm interested in as of right now. Those are all the questions that I'm going to answer today. Thank you guys so much for submitting the questions. And again, thank you guys so much for your support and your patience. Stay tuned for the Mishwara drop. I'm so excited for you guys to get your guys' hands on everything and to see how you guys style the scarves. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I will see you guys in my next one.